Thundarr, I'm E-Lightning. This is Sports Storm.
Today we will be doing our final NFL mock draft, our fifth version. So let's get right into it. With the first pick overall in the 2016 draft, the Los Angeles Rams swapped picks with Tennessee. Who do you have them selecting at number 1?
I have them taking Jared Goff. It's pretty obvious. Everybody in the freaking world knows that they're picking Jared Goff. Everybody said 99.9% chance they pick him. It's obvious. They need a quarterback. He's the best quarterback. You trade up to get quarterbacks. It's a chain reaction. It's obvious.
Yeah, I also have them taking I haven't taken Carson Wentz at 0.01% now. I haven't taken Jared Goff. I think he fits the Ram system more. He gets to stay in California. I think he's the more polished passer in this role for the Saints.
Can share the sugar.
Oh my gosh. All right. And at number 2, now the Philadelphia Eagles recently made a trade, traded 5 future picks for the second pick, swapped picks with the Browns. So now it's Philadelphia picking at number 2. Who do you have Philadelphia selecting?
I have them taking Carson Wentz. They've said they're drafting a quarterback, even though they signed Sam Bradford to a stupid contract. The Eagles front office is stupid, but they will select Carson Wentz here, which is the right pick in my mind.
Yeah.
So they've already said they're drafting a quarterback. They're going to draft the second best quarterback on the board. It's obvious, like the first pick.
I also have them taking Carson Wentz. Even if somehow that 0.01% happens that Goff falls to the Eagles, they're gonna get him anyway. And I think overall, smart move for the Browns to trade down from this number 2 pick. All right, at number 3, who do you have the San Diego Chargers selecting?
The best player in the draft, Jalen Ramsey. I think he can be. I think he's like a great. I think he's an absolute great safety that can replace Eric Weddle. Or if you need to at some point, put him down there with Jason Verrett to play corner. But they already have Sam Shields. He fits into the Chargers' needs perfectly. He's a good free safety that can be there for years to come. Obvious pick here for the Chargers.
Yeah, I also am taking Jalen Ramsey. I believe he reminds me a lot of Charles Woodson, can play safety and corner. I think he can be an all-pro in the future. I think it's a huge. These two trades Chargers are probably the biggest winner here, resulting in a Jalen Ramsey pick at number 3. Who do you have the Dallas Cowboys selecting at number 4 in the draft?
I have the Dallas Cowboys selecting Ezekiel Elliott. Might be a little bit of a surprise to people, but Jerry Jones has expressed a ton of interest in Ezekiel Elliott. He's like possibly one of the best running backs of this generation if he meets his fullest potential, and there's no way you can pass on that. Imagine Ezekiel Elliott running behind that really great offensive line. That can do some damage in this league.
I also am taking Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's also going to be an all-pro in the future. Reminds me of a Marshall Faulk I've said in previous videos. Paired up with that amazing offensive line. And Alfred Morris is the only running back under contract through 2017. Darren McFadden and Lance Dunbar are both going to be free agents. So I see this going to be one of the backfields of the future. All right, who do you have at number 5, the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting?
So this is actually really all works out for the Jaguars. Before now they get the best offensive lineman in the draft, and their biggest need is offensive line. That's a very good win for the Jaguars here. Of course, you select Tunsil. He kind of like that young offense will only get better with a good young left tackle. Then you have all the cornerstone pieces. You have good receivers, good quarterback, and then finally good left tackle. That's going to be scary for years to come if they can keep Blake Bortles upright.
There have been some rumors that they might go for a potential pass rusher in DeForest Buckner or Miles Jack, but I also haven't taken Laramie Tunsil. Originally, he was supposed to be the number 1 pick. Now he kind of slides down. Another big winning team is the Jaguars as a result of these big trades. So I haven't taken Laramie Tunsil. Fits their biggest need for this extremely talented team. Who do you have at number 6, the Baltimore Ravens selecting?
I have the Baltimore Ravens selecting Joey Bosa. And the only reason I have them selecting Joey Bosa is that they need a pass rusher with a lot of their pass rushers either being old, coming off injury, or just don't know how good they're going to be. I think they get a sure thing. They can play him at outside linebacker to replace Terrell Suggs if he doesn't produce, like coming right back in. And they could also play him at defensive end if Chris Canty and Timmy Jernigan aren't getting done for you. I think that overall another winner is the Ravens as they get Joey Bosa, not going to the Cowboys.
Yeah. I have at number 6 DeForest Buckner. I think he fits the system more than Joey Bosa. I see Joey Bosa more of a strict 4-3 defensive end, but I think DeForest Buckner more fits the bill as a 3-4 outside linebacker. So I think he perfectly fits in the system, possibly replacing Terrell Suggs. Who do you have at number 7, the San Francisco 49ers selecting?
So they are absolutely the biggest loser of all these trades. Don't get the quarterback that they were supposed to get, but I think their consolation is pretty good in DeForest Buckner. That's why I'm picking absolute monster 6'7", close to 300 pounds. That coming at you is scary for anybody. They can play him at outside linebacker to help maybe alleviate Aldon Smith's big shoes, or maybe you can even play him at defensive line to help it out. Basically, he's very versatile in a defense that needs versatility.
I haven't taken Joey Bosa out of Ohio State. I think Joey Bosa and DeForest Buckner could flip spots wherever they go, but I don't think either one of them is going to fall past 7. So I think he's also one of the, I believe he's the second best pass rusher next to DeForest Buckner. And if San Francisco can get him, I'd easily jump on Joey Bosa right there. At number 8, who do you have? The Cleveland Browns recently had the second pick. Who do you have them taking?
I have the Cleveland Browns selecting Ronnie Stanley. I think you should trade Joe Thomas with those chemistry issues, and I think they will do that. And then you get the most polished offensive line product in the draft, Ronnie Stanley. I think Ronnie Stanley will really benefit RG3, as they might even actually get a productive season out of RG3. And even if they keep Joe Thomas, you could have 2 good tackles. That would really help that offense. It's not going to be good, but I think it could be better if they get Ronnie Stanley. Plus, he's an offensive lineman for the future, with all these offensive linemen either wanting to be traded or leaving in free agency.
Number 8, I have the Cleveland Browns selecting Vernon Hargreaves out of Florida. You know, he's the best corner in the draft. I consider Jalen Ramsey a free safety. But at number 8, I think Cleveland could go a number of ways here. If Elliott falls to them, I think they easily should grab Elliott at number 8. But I think Hargreaves, they can pair him up next to Joe Hayden, build that secondary. I mean, really any pick you could argue for here. At number 9, who do you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting?
Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Vernon Hargreaves. That secondary needs some work. When your best corner is Aldon Smith at what is he in
Aldon Smith?
Sorry, Alteron Werner. I got the names mixed up. Alteron Werner is not a very good corner. When he first was signed, he looked good, but he just has been decrepit. And now you definitely need Vernon Hargreaves, an infusion of young talent, and might even put that defense into an upper echelon. I mean, I think that front 7 is pretty good, especially the linebacking core, and that might be good enough to maybe get them a second-place finish in their division.
Number 9, I think if Hargreaves falls to them, you have to take him because he helps solve that secondary issue. I've been taking Ronnie Stanley out of Notre Dame. I think he's going to be in this kind of 8 to 13 range, and I think he fits the bill right here at number 9 with Tampa Bay. You know, they have struggling offensive line. They need to protect second-year quarterback Jameis Winston to improve upon that amazing offense. At number 10, who do you have the New York Football Giants selecting?
I have the New York Football Giants selecting Myles Jack. Now, this is a dream come true. Imagine getting possibly the most athletic player in the draft at number 10. It's a great fit for the Giants, as their linebacking core is, I think, their main issue of need. They get the best potential middle linebacker or even outside linebacker in the draft. That's a great fit for the Giants. Absolutely, you pick Myles Jack if he falls to them, which he does in my draft.
Honestly, I think they'd take Ronnie Stanley over Myles Jack in the situation, but in both of our mock drafts, Ronnie Stanley's already off the board. I also have them taking Myles Jack, possibly could end up being the best player out of this draft. I mean, he's a high risk, high reward, you know what I'm saying. High risk, high reward player. You know, has that knee injury, but I think if he does work out, this will be amazing for New York. Who do you have at number 11? Chicago taking?
I have him taking Darren Lee. Now, he's jumped a ton in my board, and I think you might be able to fault me for this, but I was just looking at it. He's hyper athletic, comes from from high level of competition, having to go against that good Michigan State squad a lot of years. Plus, in the good Big Ten, he had to go against Jack Conklin all those years.
You could just say
Jack Conklin is one of the best offensive line products in the draft.
You could just say.
I think he's battle tested. He's from a good system. He's uber athletic. I think those are all qualities you need in an outside linebacker. And Chicago needs an infusion of life when Pernell McPhee is their only good option.
Yeah, I don't have I have Darren Lee rising, but not that high. I have him taking Shaq Lawson out of Clemson. I think he's going to be very, very good. I consider him, I'd say, a top 5 pass rusher in this draft. I think he fits a huge need for the Bears right here. I think picking a secondary position here would be too much of a reach. If they get Stanley, definitely get Stanley at number 11. Who do you have at number 12, these New Orleans Saints selecting?
I have the New Orleans Saints selecting Leonard Floyd. I think this defense needs an infusion of life. I mean, I know you can try and work on that secondary, but there's just no corner worth picking right now. I think William Jackson is very good, and I have him rising a ton in my draft, but I don't think he can go this high. Plus, Leonard Floyd is just an uber athletic, had a really good 40 time. I think there's just no way you can pass on that when Cameron Jordan's your only good pass rusher. I think you need to get a pass rusher, and before I've had them selecting A'Shawn Robinson, but Leonard Floyd's the pick.
I also am taking Leonard Floyd. You know, like you said, uber athletic, pass rusher. You know, he had great combine. I don't see how you can pass on him here for the Saints with a desperate need at outside linebacker. Who do you have at number 13, the Miami Dolphins selecting?
I have the Miami Dolphins selecting William Jackson III. As I said, I had him rising a ton, and they need a cornerback. I think I was doing some research. I think he's a very good cornerback, and he's the best one available at the position they need the most. It's an obvious choice.
Number 13, I also am taking William Jackson. I see him as the second best corner. Had one of the best combines out of any player. I believe he ran the second fastest combine time out of any player in the combine. I'm not sure if that's right, but it's pretty close to right. I think you have to take a corner here. You lost Brent Grimes. You got to fill him in. Who do you have at number 14, the Oakland Raiders selecting?
I have the Oakland Raiders selecting Jalen Smith. Now, Jalen Smith, this defense will be scary if they select him. I think he could end up being the best player out of the draft in 3 years. Now, imagine that with Khalil Mack, Bruce Irvin, all those boys down there. There's a little bit of a letdown that they didn't get Josh Norman, but still, that could be a great defense if they select Jalen Smith. And I feel like they can make the playoffs this year, but not do any real damage. You need to pick the player for the future.
Honestly, I think Jalen Smith's going to fall out of the first round based solely off he's not even going to play this upcoming year. That scares off a lot of teams. So there's still.
So if you're not trying to win immediately, you can.
I think the Raiders are.
He's potentially the best player in the draft. Why would you pass on the best player in the draft?
Well, I'm not sure because of that knee injury. I just don't think a lot of teams are going to see him as the best player in the draft. It's like an extremely high risk, high reward player, and I don't think they'd risk a first-round pick on that kind of player. At number 14, I have Oakland taking Reggie Ragland, another inside linebacker in this draft out of Alabama. You know, I think he still fits the need for Oakland. I say if they can get Darren Lee or Reggie Ragland here, this would be a great spot for Oakland. Who do you have at number 15, the Tennessee Titans selecting?
I have the Tennessee Titans selecting Jack Conklin. Just because they traded down does not change the fact that they need an offensive lineman. I think you get the best offensive lineman on the board at this point. Position to need, best available, obvious choice.
Yeah, I also have him taking Jack Conklin out of Michigan State. I'm not sure how he'll really coexist with Taylor Lewan out of Michigan, but, you know, it's going to have to work out for Tennessee right there. At number 16, who do you have the Detroit Lions selecting?
I have the Detroit Lions selecting A'Shawn Robinson. Now, before I had Nkemdiche, but I was reading an article, the Lions do not want to draft Nkemdiche. He's been labeled as a red flag player for them, so I think you get the next best interior D lineman in the draft in A'Shawn Robinson, absolute monster out of Alabama. Good, I think it'd be a good choice and good value pick for the Lions here at 16.
I also have him getting a defensive tackle. I think A'Shawn Robinson will be in consideration. I have him taking Sheldon Rankins, who I believe is the best defensive tackle in this draft. He fits in with the Lions. They had 8 different defensive tackles last year. That doesn't work out. Pair him up next to Ezekiel Ansah on the outside. This defense could be back to an elite level. Who do you have at number 17, the Atlanta Falcons selecting?
I have the Atlanta Falcons selecting Shaq Lawson, pair up with Vic Beasley again. I think they need a pass rusher. I think their interior D-line was actually really good. Croy Bierman emerged as a better run stopper in the league, and I think you absolutely need a pass rusher, and Shaq Lawson fits.
Number 17, I have the Atlanta Falcons selecting Darren Lee out of Ohio State. Last time I had him going 25 to the Packers. I think he's proved himself to be a top 20 pick. I have him going number 17 to Atlanta, who has a spot to fill at inside linebacker. Who do you have at number 18, the Indianapolis Colts selecting?
So they lost a lot of interior linebackers in free agency and whatnot, like arrests. And I have them selecting A'Shawn Robinson. Not A'Shawn Robinson. Reggie Ragland, another player from Alabama. Absolute beast, tackling monster, should get it done for them.
Number 18, I have the Colts filling, I believe, their biggest positional need. Taylor Decker, an offensive tackle out of Ohio State. They cannot protect Andrew Luck right now. I think Taylor Decker, if they can get him or Jack Conklin this far down, this would be great for Indianapolis. Who do you have at number 19, the Buffalo Bills selecting?
I have the Buffalo Bills selecting Josh Doxson, actually. And the only reason I say that is because they need a big physical receivers to go with Sammy Watkins' speed. And I think you need to get Tyrod Taylor some more weapons so he can really prove that I thought he scrambled around too much last year. I think getting him another weapon should help that.
I have him taking A'Shawn Robinson out of
I think
Alabama.
select Ashawn Robinson if he's available.
Yeah, I think if you can get Ashawn Robinson here, I think you definitely go for him. I think there are other wide receivers you can get in the second round, possibly a Will Fuller or Leonte Carew that could possibly pair up next to Sammy Watkins. I think you go for Ashawn Robinson. I think he is the more value pick here at number 19. Who do you have at number 20, the New York Jets selecting?
I have the New York Jets selecting Paxton Lynch. He's jumped a couple spots since my last video. Now, my last video, I thought they'd sign Ryan Fitzpatrick by now. They haven't. It's looking less and less likely. You need a quarterback. Get the best one available.
I'm also haven't taken Paxton Lynch. I'm not sure if it would be the right move for the Jets front office, but they're desperate right now for a quarterback. Who knows? Maybe they go out get Brian Hoyer, who's still out there in free agency. But I haven't taken Paxton Lynch just in case. I think he could definitely develop into one of the better quarterbacks. Who do you have at number 21? The Washington Redskins recently getting Josh Norman in this draft.
I have the Washington Redskins selecting Robert Nkemdiche. Now, I know he's a little bit of a red flag player, but Washington's proven they can draft red flag players and kind of get away with it a little bit. And if you get a pass rush to go with that, I think, good secondary now with like all-pro Josh Norman, that they can win the NFC East.
I think they will win the NFC East. I also have them addressing the defensive line. I've taken Jaron Reed out of Alabama. I think he's also a brute force in the defensive line. I think he fits perfectly for Washington, who needs a defensive tackle. I think Nkemdiche is also going to fall to the second round based solely on his off-the-field issues. Who do you have at number 22, the Houston Texans selecting?
At number 22, I have the Houston Texans selecting Corey Coleman. I think he complements DeAndre Hopkins perfectly, and I think he fits Bill O'Brien's system pretty well, and that's what you need in a wide receiver. And plus, it infuses an offense that now is extremely revamped and give Brock Osweiler more weapons.
And at number 22, I have the Houston Texans selecting Josh Doxson. I think he's also the top receiver in this draft class. I think you pair him up next to DeAndre Hopkins. You got to get Brock Osweiler more options, just like you said. At number 23, who do you have the Minnesota Vikings selecting?
The Minnesota Vikings? I have the Minnesota Vikings selecting Taylor Decker. Now, their left tackle was not very good last year. I think, and Phil Waldholt was hurt, and I think you think of a lot of uncertainty, and now with receivers being off the board left and right, I think you gotta go with a tackle.
Really? I don't think receivers are off. You've only had Josh Doxson and Corey Coleman going. I haven't taken Laquan Treadwell out of Ole Miss. I believe he's the second best. I think he has the second most talent in this draft. I think you could argue for Michael Thomas or Corey Coleman here, but I think even though he had a slower 40, I think he will prove to teams that passed on him that they should have drafted him. Right here, Minnesota gets a number 1 receiver. Who do you have at number 24, the Cincinnati Bengals selecting?
I have the Cincinnati Bengals selecting Laquan Treadwell. I think this is a match made in heaven, A.J. Green, Laquan Treadwell. I mean, that's like a Twin Towers receiver combo right there. Fits perfectly in there. That's I think is a very scary combination and gives Andy Dalton no excuses.
Number 24, I haven't taken Corey Coleman out of Baylor. I mean, he's 5'11". He's not tall, but he's still a speedy receiver. I think he's a good number 2 receiver for this Bengals team. Who do you have at number 25, the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting?
It has not changed. Eli Apple is the best cornerback on the board. They need a cornerback. It's simple.
Yeah. I also haven't taken Eli Apple. You could argue for Mackenzie Alexander. I just see Eli Apple being the better corner in this draft. Who do you have at number 26, the Seattle Seahawks selecting?
So I have at number 26 the Seattle Seahawks selecting Ryan Kelly, the best center in the draft out of Alabama. They need a center with the loss of Max Unger, and the best center in the draft is still the best center in the draft. He may have an early second-round grade on most boards, but I think you got to do a little bit of a reach for a position you desperately need.
I think really Seattle's going to spend the majority of their picks on offensive linemen. They might not get a Ryan Kelly here, but I've been taking Jason Spriggs out of Indiana. Fills that left tackle gap left by Russell Okung. I think you have to capitalize on that offensive line depth, whoever you take here. At number 27, who do you have the Green Bay Packers selecting?
At number 27, I have the Green Bay Packers selecting Jaron Reed. Now, they lost B.J. Raji, and with Darren Lee not on the board anymore, I think they needed a big force on the interior line. Jaron Reed out of Alabama fits that memo perfectly, and I think it would be a good pick if he falls to them here.
Number 27, I kind of have a surprise pick here. I have the Green Bay Packers selecting Sua Cravens out of USC. I think they desperately need an inside linebacker. Now that Clay Matthews has moved outside, they have a big gap there. Darren Lee's not available. Reggie Ragland's not available. You could go Jalen Smith, but I think they need one right now. So I've been taking Sua Cravens. Can also play safety if you need him to. Who do you have at number 28, the Kansas City Chiefs selecting?
I've been selecting Noah Spence. I think he could play outside linebacker because they have a lot of retirements going in. I think Noah Spence would take a little bit of development, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs can afford it. They have a lot of good veterans there that could teach him up, and he could eventually be part of what I think could still be a scary defense. Even when Holly retires or Derek Johnson retires, I think you could slot Noah Spence right back in there.
Number 28, I have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting Mackenzie Alexander. I kind of forgot last video that they lost Sean Smith in free agency, and they have a hole they do still have Marcus Peters, but they need another corner. I have Mackenzie Alexander pairing up with Marcus Peters at those corner slots, two young corners. Who do you have at number 29, the Arizona Cardinals selecting?
I've been selecting Mackenzie Alexander. My reasoning has not changed. Mackenzie Alexander is like a project, right? We can both agree on that. Won't make an immediate impact. But you can teach him up with Tyrann Mathieu and Patrick Peterson, and that's an amazing combo. Plus, I feel like Tyrann Mathieu will swap back to his free safety role, leaving a gap at corner.
Number 29, I have the Arizona Cardinals selecting Kevin Dodd. You know, their front seven is starting to age a little bit. You can get some more young pieces in there. Kevin Dodd, I think he's a big athletic player out of Clemson. I think perfect fit in Arizona. Who do you have at number 30, the NFC champion, Carolina Panthers selecting?
So I say you get an offensive lineman. You need to protect Cam, and like most of the tackles are off the board, I have them selecting Cody White here. I had him a lot higher. He's the best guard in the draft. You pair him up with Trey Turner and whoever their center is. I'm forgetting whether it's Khalil. But I think that's a great interior offensive line, and to protect Cam is what you desperately need to do.
On number 30, I think you have to fill, I believe, your biggest hole now at corner, now that Josh Norman is gone. I haven't taken Kendall Fuller out of Virginia Tech. He's been rising on multiple draft boards, based solely on that Josh Norman is now in Washington. So I haven't taken Kendall Fuller, brother of Corey Fuller and Kyle Fuller, out of Virginia Tech. Who do you have, our final pick of this video, the Denver Broncos selecting?
I have the Broncos reaching on Connor Cook. Now I feel like Connor Cook will go early to mid-second round, and I feel like if the